Me, like I'm Bridget, for one pala doctor, Sewin and one pala lawyer, Julius have become a pilot, one pala picking must go outside law church too. I'm not still pious yet. Dream blow me for the beginning of future.
It's a future any father would wish for, but without electricity, daily life is a struggle. Despite a full-time job in finance, Peter Bai can't afford to connect to Honiara's power grid. Instead, the family relies on solar panels to charge a battery, and they pay a neighbor $1 to help them charge their phones.
2 or 3 days also, by battery not charge because solar no garab sunlight for providing energy kalau battery. Or the mifala no garab light, or the picking back cry because of supply darkness. By automatically need lightness. Mifala less for stay low, please dark too much. Even for go sleep low room low kata. But less for go sleep please dark too much. So I need him light.
It's a common story here in Solomon Islands, where electricity is often either inaccessible, unreliable, or simply too expensive. In fact, Solomon Islanders pay on average 5 times more for power than Fijians, and only around 15 to 20% of people even have access to power. The impacts are widespread. Schools often go without power, and so do critical services like hospitals. Above all, it stifles investment and the economy.
Power is the big mover behind any developments and economic growth, and it permeates pretty much all of society. Without power, we might as well go back to the dark ages.
We've been forced to remove air conditioning. We've been forced to close down the ice production machines. The 2 ice machines alone were costing 50,000 Solomons per month to run to produce ice.
In downtown Honiara, Craig Day runs a fuel station franchise and accommodation business. It's been operating in Solomon Islands for 52 years. But he says high power costs have forced many newer businesses to close.
The thing that's killed them is their lack of preparedness to accept the high price of the electricity.
So why exactly does Solomon Islands have the most expensive electricity in the world? The acting CEO of Solomon Islands Power Authority says it's complex. Geography is partly to blame. 700,000 people are dispersed across more than 300 islands, making centralized electricity nearly impossible. The other issue is where the energy comes from.
98% of the power generation is from diesel. That is the main cause of the high electricity price in the country.
Mr. Sam points out that the government is working to end its reliance on expensive imported diesel. He says there are a number of renewable projects in the pipeline. The biggest, the Tina Hydro project on Guadalcanal. While there's no completion date yet, the Solomon Islands government told the ABC it could be up and running by 2026.
When that is in operation, it will be supplying about 70% of the Honiara power demand.
The government says it should reduce power prices across the country, but many remain skeptical about hydro becoming a reality anytime soon.
We're still talking about hydro, still not doing it. Solomon Islands is a water-rich country. We are in the top 10 in the world when you talk about the amount of water we have, which is ironic.
Nothing will change until we have an appetite politically to embrace long-term economic policy.
One critical issue is the legislation that governs the sale of electricity. Currently, just the state-owned provider can sell power, and if businesses set up their own generators, they're slugged with taxes.
So that's an impediment in itself for private businesses like ours to invest substantially in the infrastructure for solar.
The government says work is underway to review the act, but the Solomon Islands Chamber of Commerce says it could take a decade to implement any changes.
We see that doing businesses here, maybe compared to other countries in the Pacific region, is one of the toughest ones.
The chamber says reform is desperately needed.
We can't be relying on donors all the time.
But genuine change is challenging in Solomon Islands, where politics is dominated by local issues.
We have a unique political system whereby essentially the elections elect a bunch of independents, which in my experience to date have lacked unity and purpose, particularly with respect to national issues like infrastructure.
Peter Kenny Loret Jr. says MPs are reluctant to invest in projects that won't help them electorally, and Parliament rarely makes new legislation.
I think the laws we've made, you can count in perhaps one hand.
In a statement, the Solomon Islands government denied the political system was to blame, saying the government was very serious about reducing power costs, and when it does, it will attract large industrial investments to the country. But back in Ben's Creek, power politics feels a long way away. Mr. Bai just hopes his children won't be living in the dark for much longer.
Power have helpful for the families with connected power, or the garam access or the beginnings of garam accessibility lo dream study block, especially during the night.